Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk on Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi's visit to Israel. So without further ado, let's get into it.
You see what you want? Look at the color. This is a bond of real friendship. Great friend, my great friend. Thank you.
The news making headlines all around the world at present is about the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Israel. It is the first time he has visited Israel since the October 7th massacre that unfolded, and he is incidentally the first Indian Prime Minister to have been to Israel. There's a lot of back and forth between the different media organizations around the world, each one giving their take on what the outcomes and the purpose of this visit is. You know, everybody's putting their spin on it, looking at the angles that are more appealing to their audience. So, you have Al Jazeera who find their 2-minute clip about Prime Minister Modi speaking about civilian deaths in Gaza, and that for them is the highlight of the trip. Now, they all perpetuate the narratives that best suit them. However, what one should understand is that the relationship between India and Israel is a very deep-rooted relationship. It goes back thousands of years. There's been trade between the people coming out from the land that is now referred to as Israel and the Jewish community there and the Indians. Also, you must remember that during the numerous attempted incursions that the Pakistanis made into India during the 1971, the liberation of Bangladesh, during that war, the Israelis gave the Indians immense support, military support, intelligence. In fact, they helped. If you have a look, I'll put the video up here, where General Jacobs, was a Jewish general in the Indian army, responsible for helping with the liberation of Bangladesh. And also, arms that were redirected, that were meant, I think, for Iran at that time, for the Shah, were redirected and sent to India by, I think at that time the Prime Minister was Golda Meir. And if I'm not mistaken, Mossad agents helped train the Mukti Bahini who were fighting against the aggression and atrocities committed by the Pakistani army against the Bengalis. Needless to say, the Bangladeshis are exceptionally and eternally grateful, and they always hold dear and reverence within their hearts what the Indians and the Israelis did for them. So much so that, they keep spouting this nonsense about trying to take over the northeastern part of India and how it belongs to them. And you have Muhammad Yunus, that impotent vassal of the United States, put in there by his demented granddad Joe Biden to destabilize Bangladesh and propagate all this nonsense about India and how they're going to cut off the chicken's neck or the Siliguri corridor and annex land. And
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy. Build things, produce things, market things, bring things to China, bring it out to the whole rest of the world. That's a production house for you.
Yeah, it's just posturing by a little puny, tiny, little insignificant part of the world that has absolutely nothing to offer and is now going on to embrace the same people that helped in the raping, pillaging, and murdering of their own citizens. But once again, their gratitude knows absolutely no bounds. It's incredible. And the fact that they'd even acknowledged that the Israelis played a hand in helping them become liberated is something that they'd probably rather sit down and have a meal with the devil than go in and acknowledge that. The point I'm trying to make here is that, even during Kargil, the Israelis supported the Indians unequivocally at a time when everybody was against India. Every time there's some issue that goes on in India, Pahalgam, you have all these Western leaders go there, they give you their 2 minutes, 2 cents, pathetic little, moderated line on how dastardly the attack was, and that's it. You never hear anything. But lo and behold, something happens in the Western world, the entire universe has to come to a stop. And we fail to recognize that a lot of this is from blowback that we've created that comes back to us here in the West. But I suppose, the West has always found it opportune to lecture, especially to India, on what it can and can't do. And I think that time is now coming to an end. And that is why I'm eternally grateful to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for putting India back in its rightful place and helping it on its trajectory towards becoming the great nation it once was, prior to the Arab invasions, the Turks going in there, and of course the British and the Portuguese. So this visit is very symbolic because the challenges that Israel faces from its Arab neighbors are the same challenges India faces on its borders with Pakistan, Bangladesh. You've got the Chinese, and then they instigate issues within Sri Lanka, within Nepal, and it's the same mindset, it's the same sick mentality that is perpetuated all around the world. Pakistan, every time there's an earthquake, the Indians had something to do with it. Every time it rains a little bit more than it should have, the Indians are responsible for it. Every time the price of oil goes up in Pakistan because they're buying it from the Saudis, it's the Indians who've done something. They mistreat the Afghans and have alienated their ally. Again, it's the Indians. The Baloch are uprising not because of the manner in which they treat the Baloch, not because of what they've done to the sons and daughters of Balochistan, but again, it's Indians. So as long as you have this boogeyman to blame, and Israel finds itself in very much the same situation. So that is why this is a very important visit. Now, you'll find that the takeaway from this is that, for example, a lot of memorandums of understandings were signed, a lot of deals were done in the education, technology sector and that. But then there was a lot of backroom negotiation that was done. Prime Minister Modi also came out in strong condemnation of what Hamas did on October 7th.
I also carry with me the deepest condolences of the people of India for every life lost and for every family whose world was shattered in the barbaric terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7. We feel your pain. We share your grief. India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond.
Now, let's not forget that when Pakistan held their so-called Kashmir Solidarity Day, Hamas leaders were revered guests at that event.
The pièce de résistance on February 5 was the presence of Hamas spokesperson Dr. Khalid Kadumi, Dr. Naji Zahir, apart from Hamas leaders Mufti Azam and Bilal Al-Salat, at the Rawalpindi rally attended by Jaish-e-Mohammed leader Masood Azhar's brother Tala Saif, launching commanders Asghar Ali Kashmiri, Masood Ilyas and top elite terror commanders. The conference titled Kashmir Solidarity and Hamas Operation Al-Aqsa Flood was designed to convey that both Kashmir and Palestine were subjects for pan-Islamic jihad.
And the similarities between the Pahalgam attack and what went on on October 7th in Israel are astounding. So we know that the Hamas network has now began tapping into the Southeastern Asian network and helping Pakistanis to try and destabilize India. Now you get, the leftists, you get these moronic Congress. Congress, I cannot understand an Indian that supports the Congress party. It baffles me, because here you have a dynasty that was set up, for want of a better word. The Gandhis, they feel that, India is their personal place, somewhere that they can, run at their own will. It's for them to use and abuse at their will. And they embrace this sick leftist mentality, and I just don't understand. Really, I don't understand. You've got this idiot Rahul Gandhi. Put the man in a spaceship, send him to the moon, let him colonize the moon, take a lot of his fellow friends with him, and they can sit there and have a big party. Because the guy is absolutely thick. He's devoid of any intellectual capacity. Every time he opens his mouth, he's on, he's a parallel in India to, I'd say, Kaya Kallas here in the EU and Annalena Baerbock and the likes, that stupid mentality, that ignorant mentality, that, it's almost you could go to the most prestigious university but still come out even thicker than you are before you went in. Because the intelligence level is lacking. It is sorely lacking. They always say that India has thrown the Palestinians under the bus. When the Kashmir issue comes up, the Palestinians are front and center to tell you how India is committing atrocities in Kashmir and how, the Indians are doing this and that to the Muslims. Right? But those same Palestinians and Hamas people want you then to side with them when they go and mercilessly murder innocent civilians in Israel, and they expect you to then say that what they did is part of armed resistance. So, the fact that you can even think that that line of reasoning is sane says a lot about the policies that the Indian governments or the Congress Indian governments of past have espoused. It's so much so that, you can beat me as much as you want, but I will always support you. The slave mentality, the mentality that you cannot remove that colonial mindset from you. You will always need to serve a master. That is the mentality they expect from you. They expect to be able to tell you where to get up, where to sit down, and how bad you are. But when they are getting hammered by the Israelis, they expect you to be there front and center. That hubristic mentality, I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm sure for most normal people, it doesn't sit well for them either. So a lot of deals will be done in the shadows in this meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu, because don't forget, the pipeline, the trade route between, Israel, some of the Gulf countries through India into Europe is very unsettling for the Turkish, it's very unsettling for the Pakistanis, and this is why you have the Saudi, Turkey, Pakistan nexus that is being formed. However, I think it's in vain, because the two countries that Saudi Arabia is aligning itself with are the two countries that in a heartbeat would drop them and foment dissent within their country. The Pakistani establishment is incapable of defending its own land. How is it now going to take on defending its own land as well as the Saudis? I don't know. The Turkish, under Erdogan, he is dead set on reviving the Ottoman Empire and making the seat of Islam Turkey again. So straight away you have an issue there between the Arabs and the Turks. However, let's see, because time will tell. At the same time, you have a tried and tested relationship between the Indians and the Jews. And let's not forget, the Jews have never ever been persecuted in India. They have never ever been persecuted in India.
I also want to say something that needs to be said. The Jewish people, when we lost our independence in our homeland, we were scattered across the planet. Jews lived in Poland and in Holland and in Iraq and in Morocco and across the planet. In many places, Jewish people suffered. In many places, Jews faced discrimination. In many places, Jewish people faced institutionalized discrimination. You've all heard the stories of the pogroms and the Nazi Holocaust and so forth. As far as I know, and I've studied this, in India, the Jewish community was never persecuted. That Indian civilization, unlike others, unlike Christian civilization in Europe, unlike some of the peoples in the Middle East, in India, there was never a phenomenon known as anti-Semitism. There is something about India which is special. Jews lived in India as a small minority for centuries, never persecuted, never persecuted. This is something you can be proud of. This is something that I am thankful for.
Diday Emet. In a world where anti-Semitism is rising, India stands out. A civilization where Jews were never persecuted by the state, only welcomed. We don't forget that too. Thank you, India.
It's the one place on the planet where they could have escaped to, and where they have escaped to, and were left alone and became part of the Indian fabric of society. I have a lot of Jewish friends, a lot. And I must say, when I look at what they have to go through on a daily basis, I was speaking to one of my friends the other day, and he said to me, I'm literally spat on and shouted at every single day because I am a Jew. And that level of hatred in society for somebody you don't even know, for me, is unjustified. One of my friend's dads was threatened by 4 Pakistani youths in the train. After October 7th had happened, and he was told in front of everybody, a train full of people, everybody put their head down, because this is how upstanding we are as British citizens. When somebody is being told that Hitler didn't finish the job and that these 4 youths will complete the job on behalf of Hitler, and they'll start by murdering my friend's father, it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder. And what makes it worse is when people in society will say they deserve it. That is even worse. Because when your society gets to this level, when the Jews are being marginalized, it's only because they are a minority. When they are out of the way, the next minority becomes the next one to be marginalized. And it continues from there. So when people get upset that Israel is militarizing and Israel is doing this, when you are surrounded by people, by states that are hell-bent on your destruction, you have two choices. You can sit back, allow yourself to be destroyed, or you can fight back. So, I know that there's a lot of defense cooperation that will be going on. I know that, so if you recall recently, Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned Israel's indigenous arms manufacturing capabilities were to expand because Israel needed to move towards self-reliance, which is something India has embraced of late. And there is much cooperation between India and Israel, much cooperation between India and Russia. I mean, India has just also confirmed the purchase of 114 Rafale jets from France. So, there is a lot that is being done behind closed doors that is not out there in the open. There's a lot of deals being done. There's a lot of intelligence sharing being done. I know there's quite a bit of intelligence sharing that goes on between Mossad and RAW. And, it's good to know that you have an ally that is time-tested. Israel has always been a time-tested ally for India. At a time when the rest of the world were arming, when the British were sending warships to assist the Pakistanis against the Indians, when the Americans were sending warships threatening the Indians. I keep coming back to this. The Israelis and the Soviets were the only two people that stood up to that aggression. So, while you'll get the BBC, when the BBC have nothing to print or nothing to present, they go to their default setting. And the default setting of the BBC is either to throw Israel under the bus or to throw India under the bus. That is their default setting. They, sometimes I think they wake up in the morning and salivate at how they're going to now spin a narrative against the Israelis or against the Indians, because I think that is what motivates a lot of those within the BBC. Al Jazeera is the same, Al Jazeera will tell you everything bad about India. It is shocking, but yeah, I suppose if that is your purpose in life, then, you have to do it to the best of your ability. So this historic meeting, the words, if you listen to Bibi Netanyahu's speech in the Knesset, where he calls Narendra Modi a brother and somebody, India that has stood with Israel. And I think it's only right that they do, because at the time when India was on its knees, the Israelis came and helped. So you have to return the favor. At a time when the Arab allies of India, countries like Indonesia, Iraq, they were all sending assistance to Pakistan. Yet Saddam Hussein would call Indira Gandhi his sister. And the Pakistani administration was the aggressor. The Pakistani army was the aggressor. But they still stood by Pakistan against India. So if you cannot honor the relationship between India and Israel because of what Israel has done for India during its hour of need, I think, you should hang your head in shame. This is the first time in a very long time that the Indian government, that the Indian state has a leader that looks at what is good for India. This is somebody who comes from India, who is not ashamed to speak in his language, not ashamed to dress like an Indian, and who has generated the respect of world leaders around the globe. But you'll always have, those Indians from within who say, oh, he's this, he's racist, he's a nationalist, he only wants Hindus to do, as a non-Muslim, I'm not allowed to go into Saudi Arabia to go and see the mosque in Mecca. I'm not allowed to enter. And that is fine. I respect that. because Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country. Why can India not be a Hindu country? Why is it that you have to bend backwards to appease the rest of the world, but the rest of the world has to run in the rules that it sees fit for itself? I don't understand. If it's good for you, it should be good for me. So I want to thank you for spending time with us on this episode, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.